Okay. So, says choose a student to read the following aloud as the group follows along. I'll just read it. That's fine. So far in this course, we have seen a few common threads and takeaways. Founders matter. Experience, passion, and vision shape the business and can make the difference between success and failure. Business plan at the founding stage of the company is a collection of hypotheses. In other words, guesses. Startups create value by systematically testing hypotheses and making changes to the plan when the test results indicate a need to change. Early tests tell us a lot about the viability of a business and where more information is needed. Previous case analyzed business models the founders had already chosen. Now we get to see a company at the moment of the choice. And before we kind of get into everything else, who was in favor? So out of the 3 business models, were you guys in favor for 1, 2, or 3? So that'd be the traditional, the razor and razor blades, and the data and analytics.
Well, I'd be interested to see what the data analytics did. So just for fun, I'd be neat to see that happen. But I'm more risk averse. I'd probably actually go with the traditional strategy. That's me.
Okay. Grisel, which one did you go for?
From experience, I've tried the traditional one, and it works. You can make money out of it, and it's profitable. But from numbers and from the analysis that I did, I would choose the data analysis one because I can see that being as the future of the businesses
and which one is that?
As the third one.
The third one.
Data analytics. Yeah. I'm choosing that.
Yeah. Okay. And Kyle, which one did you choose?
Gosh, they stole the thunder because, I mean, the future is definitely going to be in who controls the data. So the data analytics or the hybrid model is definitely the one where there is, I mean, that's where the future multi-billion-dollar company is. But I'm looking at it and I'm going, you're a startup, your sure thing is that traditional sale where they're acquired and they're probably, and I'm looking at this is probably a, you know, maybe close to $1 billion acquisition. I mean, we can't take that lightly. A traditional model will net these guys an outright purchase of probably $500 million each. That pushes me to take a serious look at that traditional model.
That's interesting because initially whenever I read through it, I was like, yeah. I was like, traditional all the way, obviously that's the one that they should do. And then as I read the next one, there's parts in that I really liked. And then in the third one, I was like, well, why wouldn't anybody? I was like, if they have the opportunity to be the Google of the human genomes, I was like, obviously that's what they want. So it's actually hard for me to decide because there's little pieces in razor blades how they would expand to the agriculture area, because I mean that can go with like genetically modifying our plants to produce more and be able to get the best crops out of each. Overall though, the safest is obviously going to be the traditional model.
I think one of the things that are perhaps not entirely represented here for us or made easy is the reality that because there's so much, we're thinking of market forces.
Right.
And there's so much money to be had in this industry that even though we've been given a look at this, you know, through Estevan Pure and Rastegar's perspective, this kind of money is going to attract the real Googles on the block, or the Google that you don't see. And that's the risk of going for option number 3 is you miss that window to sell. You bet all of your eggs on becoming Google, but then Google shows up. You know,
Right.
I think of the search engines that made an attempt to be what Google is, and we can't even remember what their names are.
Yep.
That's true.
I was wondering why they couldn't maybe use a little bit of all of them, or offer the product at the with the traditional strategy, but also perhaps offer another package. You might have people willing to sell their information for a smaller price, and then they could take that and resell it in the future. But couldn't they use all of them at the same time to some extent?
Yeah, I'm trying to see, because I felt like somewhere, I thought it was in the prep assignment.
The hybrid strategy.
Yeah, the hybrid strategy.
And they certainly could. As a matter, I think actually that's what our group has made an argument for. Each of you is saying we would like to see a valuation strategy pursued to the point of a purchase. And often the idea of a purchase is that not only do you as a founder take home your $500 million, but you end up, when you have a $500 million and you're the entrepreneur, you often are given an opportunity to grow with a now ongoing public company versus a private startup, even of this magnitude. So that wasn't given us as an option, but I think each of us have described a desire for a hybrid, which is elements from each of the models.
Yeah, that's what I would choose. But if I had to choose one of them, I'd probably go with the first one.
Yeah.
I agree with you guys on that. One of the reasons why I thought of the data analytics is I agree with Kyle that bringing up Google and the other companies in the same industry. Why I decided for data analytics on the specific industry that the company that we're studying is because the other companies in the industry that own the market, they have a traditional a traditional business model, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they would go to the traditional model, they would crash them. And they're the Google there, right, with the traditional model. But if they can go in this way with the data, the only cons that I could see is finding willing investors who have faith and know that the risk rate is 20% compared to the 12% of the traditional one. And I think 15% is on the other one, but I think this could be a cons, and there will be a lot of R&D as well. But I agree with you that the hybrid one can be a very good choice as well to help them start as a startup. So.
I think next to finding investors, I think that could definitely be the most profitable way to go, the data model. But next to finding investors, I think the next, or maybe for me, I think the biggest concern would be the privacy. You're going to have a lot of watchdog groups, and unless you got some backing by some people with power, there's going to be a lot of concern for the privacy aspect. And I think
that is true. Yeah.
Within the last few years, I think they actually even weren't. I know that you can't patent human DNA, can you? I mean, they were trying, but I think that the Supreme Court issue ruled that out, didn't they?
They did.
I know they can do that with food, and you've got Monsanto and stuff like that, but But that'd be a major blow for them, maybe.
Well, their purpose was to make it as personal as possible to the people, to know their DNA and not have problems, and so they were trying to do that, and basically they were trying to be like Facebook or Google or other these guys, because I'm sure they're not telling you that, hey, we're using your data, we're using your information.
Yeah.
Facebook is using our information in advertising.
Well, I think it's in the, what is it? The thing that you have to check off before you can even sign up. What is that word? Just blank from my mind right now.
Privacy, you got to
The
waive.
terms and conditions.
Yeah, terms, yeah.
Of course, there is that, but they don't tell you about other stuff, like on the advertisements and other companies that want to know how much clicking you do on this page or how much clicking you do on that. And the same is for Google, right? So, but there is cons and pros, right? There's always a risk. So.
Yeah, there's a risk to everything you do.
My headset's got to die. I'm going to grab a charge cord. I'll be back in just a minute or less. Oh, here it is.
I'm supposed to ask questions. I'm just on a polling thing. I'm supposed to have one on here. So, Jennifer, so we can just compare answers afterwards. So if you guys, I don't know if this is too much to ask for you guys, if you can look at the discussion in the iLearn, so the case discussion, and go down to after question 5, there's these questions 1 through 3. If you guys can just write down your answer, and then after we'll talk about it.
Which question? Sorry.
So if you go to the case discussion in iLearn for the GnapSys, if you go down, if you scroll down, you can see question 5, and then it says use a polling tool that allows students to vote. And it's questions 1 through 3. If you can, I don't know, either know the answer that you're going to pick or write it down.
Do you want those written in the chat box?
Yeah, just send them in the chat box. I didn't think that.
Okay.
Hey, Adam, can you throw those questions up?
Yeah, I can.
We'll see who gets to it faster. You'll probably beat me to it.
Okay.
Oh, you've got it? Okay.
Okay, so do you see them right there?
Yeah.
So questions 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, and so 3 I'll have to scroll down for you guys.
Okay.
Sorry.
Those are my answers.
Okay. problem.
How old is your child, Adam?
This one is about 9 months.
9 months?
Yeah.
Not too far from my little guy. He's 11 months.
Oh, cool. It's a fun stage. She just started taking off in her crawling.
Yeah.
They do that at 5 months.
Yeah, this one took her time, but when she decided to do it, she's like a rocket.
I was hoping I'd have a little more time in there.
Okay, did that work?
Mm. Answers. Do you guys want to send the answers?
Did my answers not show up in that text box?
No.
Hmm.
Or did you put it on? Let me check on this.
Well,
Yeah, Adam, I have yours. The group chat on the side. Yeah, Kyle, I don't have yours yet.
well,
Oh, I see. Okay, I see that first one. Okay, they're slowly coming.
yeah.
Okay, I got them all.
Tried to send it to you privately. I thought that's what we were doing, and then it didn't work.
Oh, no, that's fine. Okay, so I have them all. Let me go. My screen is still being shared. Do you guys still need to see it, or are you good?
And you know what, Adam's. Oh, we'll talk about it in a minute. I should look closely.
Should I send mine to the group chat as well, or?
No, yours are on the other. That's fine. I think I wrote yours down, actually.
Okay.
Let me write them down really fast.
Because I send them on the
Yeah.
to the Gmail, so. But
Okay. Yeah, I wrote them down, so you're good. Don't worry about it. So I'll keep these up so we can go over them. So for the first one, we actually all put increase, and then we put decrease for the second one. Did you guys use? I used the Excel spreadsheet.
yeah, that's what I used to.
I'll just kind of play with those numbers. Is that what you guys all did? Okay. And then for the second question, that's the same thing that I did. Just think this number. And then for the third one, let's see. At a time, I didn't really know what this question was asking.
So it's asking in which of those segments, in which leg of the investment curve process. So we're looking at a burn rate there, or the rate at which money is spent in this organization. Are we losing the most money?
Oh, okay. That way, yeah. I know the answer to that.
From 0 to -3 is
Right.
the correct answer.
So is it where we're burning through the most or where we've lost the most?
I believe it is where we're burning through the most because it's the rate of cash per period. And so I put B and C because I was looking at it, and then I stopped and used my head, and I believe it's A to B.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was thinking it was A to B. I didn't really know what the question was asking. I was like, okay, we'll see.
Okay.
Well, it is tricky because if you're looking at your cumulative burn, you reach your low point and your turn at leg C to D, so B to C is your low point. But if you're looking at your worst burn rate, which is when you're going through cash
The fastest.
the fastest, it's A to B.
Should just be the steepest line
Yeah.
curving downwards.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, I agree with you on A and B then.
So are you good with that, Grizel?
Yeah, I see the reasoning Kyle and Adams said, so I agree with that. I had a different one that's why I decided B and C. But if it's the accumulative, how much they're burning and what's the biggest, I can see that it's A and B. So.
Okay. What strategies have we seen that flatten or lengthen the cash flow curve?
Strategies that involve investing in assets. Strategies that involve one-time expenditures or investing in anything that's going to not contribute to your ROA. For examples, we could use Rent the Runway. Those girls, they had the opportunity to improve cash flow by focusing on operations and improving customer satisfaction, or they could dramatically increase their dress selection, which would represent an asset purchase, and that would flatten the cash flow curve and their return by increasing the investment. Earnings before interest, depreciation, and taxes.
Yeah.
So in the current case, it would be the Google type scenario, right, where they have to spend a lot on creating databases and other means of warehousing and storing and keeping track of it, not getting large sales right off the bat, but waiting for accumulated income, right?
Right.
Something else that I kind of saw as I was playing with the numbers at the chart, agreeing with what the assets will flatten and what the operation profit will increase in the cash flow. The sales, if I changed the sales because the sales there were around I think 5% sales growth. I just changed that to 15 and more %, and it flattened it pretty good, the cash flow. And so I was surprised because sales are important. If you have more sales, you have more profits, and you would get more. But I think the most important was the operational growth and the operational profits.
Yeah. A steady growth over a period of time.
Yeah.
So let's see what happened. What would happen to Dr. John if they decided to build an independent company rather than get acquired? Do you guys remember that case study at all?
I do.
Yeah. John had his spin brush, and
Okay.
he had other products, but his spin brush was selling a lot. They were like 6,000 or so a day, and so he was having a lot of sales in that. And I think he wasn't sure what decision to make. Either continue or sell the company or something. What I decided, because we didn't do the hangouts on this one together, but what I decided for him was for him to sell it and get a royalty out of the.
Go play first.
because I think he would have a lot of assets and a lot of sales, which would decrease cash flow a lot, or
And that's what
flatten his.
like he was good at too. He was a good person at starting up companies, and then he was good at
Yeah,
selling them and coming up with
yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah,
because
yeah.
there
He
are people
was really.
that like good at that.
He had experiences with that, right? So, but I think his cash flow curve would be quite flattened because he would have a lot of inventory and sales, but the operational profit wasn't the best. So that's
Yeah.
my endpoint.
So if he had decided to go independent and create his own manufacturing and do it all solo, potentially though he could have. I don't know if he really would have. It would have been quite the operation, a lot of a job and and all that. But he potentially could have made more money down the road. At least that was my analysis of it. If he had done it right. If
Right, and I think that's with anything, like sticking with something. You're going to
right.
get more out of it.
So his initial cash flows wouldn't have been as great. He wouldn't have made. But down the road he would have had more, and eventually it might have overtaken what he did make.
Or right, but I don't know, because it's all like getting the right people in the bus too. Some people, their knack is starting up businesses, and they're good at that, but they can't maintain it. So that's where I was like, nah, let's just sell it so we can go on to the next thing, because I'm sure he's going to make money on something else.
And
Yeah,
that
he
was what
was
he was.
really good at starting stuff, eh?
Yeah.
And that's what he was good at. That's what he had done historically, and he had a proven track record of creating new things and selling them and making a good buck. So that's probably the best for
Which
him in
that's where
that
he got
situation.
this idea from. He got it from, I don't know if do you guys remember the little spin pops? I'm probably the youngest in the group.
The lollipop thing.
Yeah, the lollipop thing that spun around. My mom was like, no, you cannot get one. They're at the dollar store.
So he rots people's teeth and then he
So we
creates
did the
toothbrushes.
lollipop thing, and he was like, hey, we can use this for our toothbrush. It's the same mechanics.
He controls both markets, rotting teeth and fixing. He's
I
brilliant.
know. He's a well-rounded person with that, I guess.
So it sounds like the group agrees that if Dr. Johns had decided to take and make very expensive investments in manufacturing, development, and machinery, that his cash flow curve would flatten and deepen, and that it would decrease his time to pay back, but that there is the potential that he might receive a larger return over time, despite that initial cash curve going deep, and decreasing the time to pay back. Is that correct?
Yep. I agree. It would have been more risky, but yeah.
Okay, so for Rent the Runway,
I think that they couldn't have stocked up on dresses. That wouldn't have worked because they were in the business of renting out new styles. And so if there was a
so
critical inventory they could have.
yeah, so essentially it would be Rent the Runway would be renting the dresses from the owners and just giving them business.
But their business model was a kind of a long run type of operation, wasn't it? I mean, they didn't sell it right off the bat, so they were looking down the road for future profits.
Yeah, Rent the Runway chose a business model that was a long-term play, and they decided that they needed that hybrid strategy where they had to do both. You know, there's an old saying: sometimes you have to make more money, sometimes you have to spend less, and sometimes you have to do both. They found themselves in a place where their model, in terms of market model, was overwhelmingly popular for reasons that surprised them, and so they ended up having to invest both in operations and in inventory to meet the surprise $150,000, 150,000 member um, people who joined and wanted dresses. At one point over the holidays, they were, 2 weeks out and 5,000 dresses back ordered.
You have to order them like 2 months in advance now.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to, but if you want a dress and you want to make sure that you get it, you have to do like 2 months in advance.
Amazing.
Wow.
That's where, because I got married a year ago, and that's where we got the bridesmaid dresses from. We just ordered them all.
So I think that case, the question, some of the questions behind it that we were asked were whether or not they should invest more into the dresses or whether or not their burn rate should be higher than it was.
Oh, it's not just asking us what the impact would have been on the cash flow curve?
On the impact, like how would their cash flow curve would be?
That they would have done on with their first business plan.
Yeah. What's the matter, buddy?
Because I think the contrast with that one is, like in contrast to Dr. John's, is that without adding more availability to dresses, I mean, they were out of inventory. The wait time became longer, and so cash flow became flatter.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm in the business of renting something, and I have one of them, and I rent it out, and I have 2,080 billable hours a year, I can rent that one thing out 2,000, for 2,080 hours. If I go out and I buy 9 more of those things, and there is my expense in that, but let's assume that I'm financing those other 9 things, so I'm carrying them at interest rather than a direct outlay of cash, and then I rent all 10 of them for their 2,080 hours each, my cash flow curve looks wonderful. It might not improve my payback. My payback might look uglier, but my cash flow curve is going to look great. I'm going to have a huge positive cash flow.
Yeah, I agree with Kyle on that. I did the numbers when we had the Rent the Runaway, and they had some really good cash flows, and like they had some good numbers. What's the matter, bud?
Well, it's always fascinating to me if I'm one with my clients who may have amazing cash flow. I mean, they may have, cash flows of $50,000-$60,000 a month, but they're running in the red. They're losing money despite the fact that they have a tremendous amount of cash coming in and out on the books every week.
Yeah, and that was the thing with that case study, it says, say that each girl rents 2 dresses. You don't have to rent 2 dresses, and from just from the people I've talked to that have used the site, not all of them have ordered 2 dresses. So if there was an 80% chance that people were going to order 2 dresses, and there was that 20% that people weren't, they were actually making a positive cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just the fact about the 2, if everybody was ordering 2 dresses, then they'd be losing money.
Yeah, I remember us talking about those variables.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of it would also depend on, if the designers retained ownership of the dresses, a lot of it would depend on whether or not, or how much they were charging. If they've got dresses that are just sitting around in inventory, Rent the Runaway certainly might have a better cash flow if they didn't have to deal with that. So,
and I think they would have a better cash flow at the beginning, but then after time, the designers would figure out how to do their own renting process if they would have seen how it was working, and then it would have either pretty much just deepened and then flattened out. deepen a little bit. So I think the one that they went with was a lot smarter, even though they didn't even know that's what they wanted to do.
I really like their model until the point where if they would
Okay. So for number 7, what decisions did Drew Houston make in Dropbox that favorably impacted the cash flow curve?
He adopted the KISS model.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything to say on that one? No? Okay. So for GnapSys, from a cash flow standpoint, for each business model option under consideration, we have to consider the net present value. Is some of the options with similar NPVs? What is the risk here? Is it advisable to take additional risk for similar net present value?
Boy, here's where it really, you know, your view of the world becomes really important because, I mean, a financial analyst is going to say, well, no, it's never advisable additional risk for a similar NPV. But if you're a person of vision, I mean, let's say you're Rastegar and you want to be, I mean, it's important to you to be the person steering the future of how healthcare is delivered, that may be a reason to, you know, do something that involves a little more risk that it's going to deliver a similar NPV. That's not to say that there isn't an argument there that there could be additional value that can be found, but then on paper the NPV is the same or similar. It's just whether or not you are the executive who gets to continue steering that technology.
Right.
Hello, guys, I'm back.
Welcome back. What do you think, Adam?
Well, I'm looking at this when I was reading through the case, and I was looking at the, some of these questions. I'm wondering, and I probably shouldn't wonder. I think most of the time they're talking about numbers, but when they're talking about risk, okay, riskier. From the founder's perspective, it might be risky to use the conventional model because he's not going to be able to follow through with his dream of blessing the world like he would, if he had a Google type of, operation for this technology. And so, for him, that might be risky. He's put so much into it, and now he can't database all of this and help people the way he envisions it. So, as far as risk goes, I think it like Kyle said, it really depends on your perspective and where you're at, what your visions and goals are.
Yeah.
Which question are we?
Kyle
Sorry.
said that also depends on, all on paper it all looks the same.
We're in question number 8. The
Oh.
first point there, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
8A.
Okay. You guys went through Dropbox?
Yeah.
Okay.
We just went over that one really fast.
Kyle had a fabulous answer, and we just ran with that.
We're like, yep.
What was the answer on that? Because I wasn't.
The summary of Drew Houston's choices to favorably impact cash flow was that he chose to keep everything as simple as possible. And
Okay. You lost Kyle as well now, hey?
What's that?
Are you there, Kyle?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. How will GnapSys raise funds to support each option? Is any option clearly more attractive to investors?
I think it depends on the investor.
Oh, yeah.
Depends on what the investor wants.
Right. Do they want long-term and maybe huge stake in some massive operation down the road, or do they want a quick buck? And it's all
Right.
attractive. I mean, they've got amazing technology, and they could quickly sell it and make a fortune. But do they want to make more down the road with a potential long-term investment?
I don't know if you guys went through the investors at the case. Some of those investors were from China as well, were willing to invest. And it was very interesting. Some of them were 1 to 6 years, some of them were more years. So they would get returns. And I said in the beginning, the data analytics is not a very attractive one for investors, especially the investors who are in the beginning process or in the middle. But investors who are more experienced, more professional, and they can, wait more and have more funds, I think it can be more attractive to them, because as you guys mentioned at the MPD, the riskier from all is the data analytic, and the other ones are less riskier. Of course, depends from where you view that, right? So, but I can see that the general of the investors, most of the investors will go for the traditional or the other one, but not at the data. It's less familiar and less like it's something new. It's for the future. So
It looks like the two investors that are talked about in the end of the case, they're relatively young. They're new. They don't have a lot of years on them, so
they probably want something that's not as risky.
they might, but I don't know. Might depend on their backers.
Yeah.
People pulling their strings, and if they want to jump in and jump out, or they might see this as a great long-term investment.
Right. Depends on what they want out of making this deal, in the business deal. So how they raise, all right, we talked about this, sorry. For each option, how much of the company will the founders have to give up to reach the goal? That's where I thought it was kind of confusing, because it's like, because I just see there's good things in each of them, and there's other stuff that I'm not really comfortable with if I was an investor.
on this one, I don't know. Kyle might correct me on this one because from last week it seemed like he had more knowledge in investing and those companies and stuff.
Thank you. Sorry.
Will this depend on the value of the company? Because the amount of how much the investors will invest will depend on the value of the company. Like if the value of the company is 20 million, and if they invest in 25% of that or 10% of that, it would be like 200,000, or actually 2 million. So does it? Like I'm not sure about it, but I think it depends on the value that the founders put to the company, and that would kind of like set the rules how much equity they will get to the goal. What's your thought on that, Kyle?
Adam, did you have a thought there?
Probably not as deep and broad as what you've come up with, but I think it just depends on the type of funding the business plan that they come up with. I mean, if they've got other equity investors, then they're certainly going to lose control, or they could lose control and controlling share. I mean, they could keep a certain share, but if they go with the data deal, the Google type of thing, they're going to need a lot more money, and there's a lot more potential that they could lose control because they're going to need a lot more money. They're going to have to bring in more investors, or and even if it's not investors, if it's I mean equity investors, if they're debt investors, they can still pull strings. So the more money that they pull in, I think the less control they're going to have. But still, they could make more money on a bigger operation, though. Anyway, that's me. Go ahead, Kyle.
No, I think you're both dead on, and remember that the only reason I mean, this is what I do for a living, so I mean, yet here I am in class with you guys. So you're absolutely right. The more money you want to make, the more money you take, the less ownership you have, and that's why control of companies gets split between boards and executive positions, where what happens is, especially, I mean, I'll be honest, I have never been, the largest investment that I have worked in personally is $140 million. So we're talking about billions of dollars here. And so these guys are going to need to take hundreds of millions of dollars in order to launch the data analytics, which is the most speculative version of this business plan. In order for them to do that, they're going to end up being forced to take options. They're going to be, rather than being able to retain direct ownership, they're going to be given a leadership position, a la COO, CEO, CTO, for example, and then they're going to be given performance options where they would, in the future, be rewarded with stock based on the company's splitting performance. So it is a tricky question, because clearly they could retain a larger piece of a much smaller pie, or they can take and bet their pie on the opportunity to have, a slice of, of Google or Microsoft. I think it's exactly what the two of you said. The more after-tax dollars, the more equity that you want in the future, the more you often have to give up in the present.
And I suppose they could have stipulations in the contract. No matter how much is invested in their company by others, they could have stipulations that give them, control. But that would, that might determine whether or not they get funding too. So it depends on a lot, I think, on the viability of their idea, whether or not people want to invest in whatever it is that they want to present to investors, creditors.
Right. Okay, so for the last question, I feel like we kind of answered that with all this. Put yourself in the shoes of, I'm going to butcher that name, I'm not going to try, and Rastiger and the investors, and we have to decide as a group which business model we'll choose. From the sounds of it, it sounds like we're going with option number 1, but then we'd also do a hybrid.
Are we allowed to choose hybrid, or do we have to choose 1, 2, or 3 for the...
I feel like somewhere I saw the hybrid version, so I say we have both, because I don't know what's going to be in the post-discussion write-up. Or in the post-discussion, what is it? The quiz over there.
Is there supposed to be a unique write-up for this particular case? I haven't looked that far ahead.
Not that I've seen. And I feel like what this class asks for, I mean, I still don't know what to do for the case analysis submission, but I'm getting good grades on it, so I'm like, okay.
Sometimes I guess you don't know until you click on
I know.
the quiz.
No, it doesn't look like there's anything special.
Well, it says to put yourself in the shoes of this founder, and everything that I read about him indicates that he doesn't really care so much about money. He says that I can pull up the quote, but he says that he's set. He's not going to go hungry. He's more concerned about um, developing a product that's going to bless lives. And he even indicated, I think near the end of the case, that this this database of information, the analytics thing, might have more potential for doing that. Whereas we don't really know exactly what the investors want to do, except I mean make money, and they could make money either way. So maybe it'd be somewhere in between those two visions. I think a hybrid would do that. It depends on the personality of the investors.
Yeah, and what kind of investors they're wanting to attract.
And if the founder wanted to go all the way, and if the investors were hesitant, then there'd probably be some negotiating somewhere in the middle.
So let me ask you this: is it safe to say that, just to make sure that we're all on the same page for the purpose of the post case study analysis or the post case study write-up or the little quiz, that we're choosing option 3, which is data analytics, as a team? Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I'm hearing, and I'm good with option number 3. I think in the long run, it'd be a smarter move. It's the riskiest, but I feel like we'll get the most return.
Because my fear is we're going to be presented with a set of radio buttons, and hybrid is not going to be one of the options.
I know, that's what I'm thinking.
So if hybrid was, then we click that. Otherwise, we're looking at the third option, right?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. I have been on the third option since the beginning, so
Yeah.
You know, the hybrid can be a good options as well, especially for a startup. But yeah, I agree with you guys said, and even though the cons of it, we need to find a lot of investors and need to do a lot of R&D. Beside that, data analytics seems the best option. So.
Sounds good to me.
Me too.
Yep.
Okay, so are you guys comfortable with saying your case in the post discussion write-up?
I am.
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I think we are good. And I looked, and we don't have another case study for this week.
That's the only one.
Yeah, this is the only one. It's an individual assignment.
We're asked instead to do a write-up on, which one was it?
Rent the Runway.
Yes, thank you.
Runway, yeah.
1,500 word write-up.
1,500?
Yeah.
I did more than that in my submission. I guess I need to look at the assignment.
No, I'm with you. So, as a matter of fact, I added that in my feedback last week. I'm like, am I massively overdoing this, or, it would be, but yeah.
You know, my first submission, the teacher said that I overdid it. He said I only needed to really do one page, and then maybe a page with a spreadsheet on it or something if there are numbers to crunch. So I'm like, a page?
A page?
How can you put all of that information on one page?
Well, I do. Where is it? I'll let you guys know when I have to look for it each time. But there is.
And I guess I overdid it, but he graded me well. And the next weeks, I thought I certainly did more than a page, but
Yeah.
my grades weren't bad. But it'd been nice if he explained a little bit better as to
I
what
know.
I didn't
This is
do
what
right.
I've been doing.
Well,
I literally copy and paste these questions, and I answer them.
and it depends what kind of case is, right? It can be a
Yeah.
decision case, can be an evaluation case, be a problem case, and there is a somewhere there. I think there is a different questions for each kind of case and the structure, how it should be.
Right, whether we're asked to evaluate, make a decision, or apply rules.
Yeah, yeah,
And then determine if there's been any provided framework.
yeah. What I usually do, I do a short summarize, and I always try to put financial situations. I always try to put numbers there, so I can, they can back me up. And then I write my hypothesis. Usually is half a page to a page with cons and pros to it. So it takes me about 2.5, 3 pages. He hasn't said anything about it. He has graded me well, so I'm happy, I guess.
All right.
I think that the questions you have here, Madison, on your shared screen are the same in the case analysis study guide.
Yeah, it's a study guide, but this is more of like a condensed version. I feel like the study guide is so
Yeah, and
difficult for me to go through.
I was filling out the study guide and submitting that, and then the last couple times I've just done what you've done here. But I guess some of the questions he's indicated that there needs to be set in stone numbers, and I guess I just need to talk with him, ask him, if he can straighten me out on some of those. But
yeah, it's not clear on what he's looking for.
Maybe I've been too wishy-washy.
But.
Well, cool.
I think you guys are awesome.
Yep, not after.
You're awesome.
Everyone is awesome here, beside me, right?
Okay.
No.
I'm just kidding. So the hangout then will be for next week. My turn, right? Because we'll have the
Yes, next Tuesday would be yours.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, I will be in charge of that.
Okay.
All right. If Madison can post the link
Yeah,
as
I'll
well.
post it in the group chat. I'm on the group chat in iLearn.
Okay.
There's a discussion board.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you guys. See you later.
We'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.